Good.
Still so much to be done.
Still so much to be done.
Going.
Going. Where it is going? Huh? Going. Where it is going? Poverty. Now, poverty is such topic even a chai wala can talk on it. Yes. Now you might say chai wala became PM, right? Why can't he? Huh? But chai wala will talk about poverty only in economic connotation. That is going to be a little different with respect to these perceptions, right? Now tell me, what is poverty as such?
Lack of access to basic needs
Lack of access to
because of the 3 years.
because of 3 years, okay.
Lack of 3 years because of socio-economic backwardness.
Pardon, can you?
Lack of 3 years because of socio-economic backwardness.
Because of socio-economic backwardness. Very good. Any other understanding of poverty? Any other understanding of poverty?
Types of, we can say, we can divide the poverty in different types.
Okay.
Like,
Absolute poverty.
Basically, under poverty, we're going to see what is poverty or basic understanding of poverty.
Only basic needs.
Yes. Inaccessibility to basic needs. Then we'll see types of poverty. We'll see the status. Then after status, we'll see the factors of poverty or reasons for poverty. Then consequences of poverty. Then measures. Now, as part of types or status, we'll even talk about the estimation of poverty. Now, actually, this estimation part, your economy faculty is supposed to deal. He has talked about BPL mechanism,
but
Tendulkar committees, Rangarajan committee. Huh?
on a later note, just like these
This mixed recall periods, modified mixed recall periods. No? Universal status, all this. Okay. We'll deal, no problem, no issues. Now, when you look at the basic understanding of poverty, what is poverty? I said inaccessibility to basic needs. Inaccessibility to basic needs, or if a particular section of a community or if a particular individual who has no potential or who has under potential or who lacks potential to meet the basic necessities of his life. Now, this kind of understanding of poverty, it will become very clear when you look into the estimation of poverty. Because in estimation of poverty, it was completely based on basket of goods. Now, basket of goods in the sense, now when you talk about it might be Lakadawala committee, it might be Alak committee, it might be Tendulkar committee, it might be Rangarajan committee, you would see that all of them considered a set of goods to classify or to categorize your poverty or estimate poverty. Now, in that goods, basket of goods, they were basically looking for whatever kinds of basic needs. Now, when you look across the committees, when you talk about your Lakdawala or Alak committee, basically they emphasized on normal day-to-day necessities. Then this basket of normal day-to-day necessities have been expanded by your Tendulkar committee. Then your Rangarajan committee had brought in an element of even education, health. He has even considered the capability approach of Amartya Sen. So that is with respect to the understanding of poverty. Now please remember, whenever you are defining poverty, you need to categorically mention it is a multi-dimensional issue. You need to categorically mention that it is a multi-dimensional issue. Because when you look at multi-dimensional issue or the poverty as a multi-dimensional issue, you realize that it has an economic connotation, it has a social connotation, it has a political connotation, it has a technological connotation, it has a legal connotation, it has an ethical connotation. Now, with such multiple spheres of life being affected because of a phenomena of poverty, that's why we call it as multi-dimensional concept or a multi-dimensional issue or a multi-dimensional phenomena. So if you're defining a poverty, it's a multi-dimensional phenomena which basically indicates the inaccessibility to basic needs of a particular section of society or of a particular individual in the society. This is the general definition of understanding of poverty. Now when you look at types of poverty,
What is below poverty line, sir?
I'll tell you. We'll see when we are discussing about estimation. Okay. Now when you talk about types of poverty, you basically talk about something called as absolute and relative poverty. Absolute and relative poverty. What is absolute poverty?
The one which does not even have a basic needs.
Which does not have basic needs. And which are not able to meet a particular criteria with respect to income or with respect to certain baskets. For example, here below poverty line, right? So that means if your below poverty line is 1,000 rupees, if an individual is say 999, he is below poverty line. But if an individual is 1,001, he is considered as above poverty line. So absolute poverty is that kind of poverty where an individual is not able to meet the basic needs, and which is quantified in terms of your below poverty line, or which is quantified through the estimation of poverty. Now this kind of poverty, that is your absolute poverty, is estimated in the form of head count ratio. Head count ratio basically is a ratio of the number of people below poverty line to that of total population. Now when you talk about relative poverty, now if you have to compare your absolute poverty with your relative poverty, you will understand that when it comes to relative poverty, say this is your BPL, say if it is 1,000, for example. Now there is a person who has 900, there is a person who has 800, there is a person who has 600, for example. Now under your absolute poverty, all these three individuals are considered as below poverty line. But when you are basically looking at the relative poverty, it says that individual X is 100 rupees away from your poverty line. Individual Y is 200 rupees away from your poverty line, and individual Z is 400 rupees away from your poverty line. That means the relative poverty or the metric of relative poverty is indicating at the intensity of poverty. Now here we say three people are below poverty line, but here we are saying there is one person who is 100 rupees below poverty line, there is one person who is 200 rupees below poverty line, there is one person who is 300 rupees below or 400 rupees below poverty line. Now it is basically giving you a clear picture. Qualitative definition, or it is giving you the intensity of poverty. Now this is measured by something called as poverty gap ratio. Now the difference between the poverty line and the individual's income is what is called as poverty gap. This line is what is called as your poverty gap. Is it clear? A poverty gap ratio is summation of all the poverty gaps to the total population.
So what is PGR? poverty gap
ratio.
ratio.
Is this clear? So this is all about the types of poverty. Now when you look about the estimation of poverty, now there are a number of committees who have discussed with respect to estimation of poverty. For example, here Alag, your Lakdawala, then your Tendulkar, then your Rangarajan. Now whatever kind of poverty estimations we are following your Tendulkar committee recommendations. We have not implemented the Rangarajan committee implementations, but we are following your Tendulkar committee implementations. Now when you look at your Tendulkar committee implementations, and as per Tendulkar committee, there is around 22.7% of people who are below poverty line. Now when you look into the estimation of this poverty line, you basically consider three types of reference mechanisms or reference criteria. The first type is usual status. The second type is mixed recall period, or this can be also called as uniform recall period. Uniform recall period, mixed recall period, modified mixed recall period.
What? These are three criteria.
These are three reference criteria to estimate poverty.
Under which one? Under which one?
Generally,
Uniform, this is
uniform recall period. Uniform recall period. Recall. This is modified recall, mixed recall period. This is modified mixed recall period. Now when you look at this uniform recall period, it says, my dear, whatever you have consumed from past 1 year, please recall and tell us. Whatever you have consumed from past 1 year, you please recall and tell us, so that we'll estimate based on that. Now it will be an household survey. Now they'll come to my house and they'll ask you what you have consumed from past 1 year, tell us. So based on the expenditure, whatever I have undergone for the past 1 year, they're going to calculate whether I am below poverty line or above poverty line. Now they'll go to this person's house, they'll ask him, 1 year what have you done? They'll do the same process. And based on the uniform recall period, why it is called as uniform recall period? Because it is considered, the reference period that is considered for your food items and non-food items are same. That is why it is called as uniform recall period. Now when you talk about mixed recall period, when you talk about your mixed recall period, they say that food and non-food. This food and non-food comes in modified recall period. In this, they have two different recall periods. One, whatever you have consumed from past 7 days, and whatever you have consumed from past 1 year. Right? Now whatever you have consumed from past 7 days, please tell us. Whatever you consumed from past 1 year, you please tell us. Now when you look at modified mixed period, one time period will be 7 days for your food items. One time period will be 30 days for your daily needs. One time period will be 1 year for non-food items. That means suppose if you are using a soap, you cannot use one soap for 1 year. Yes. So that kind of soap or that item as part of your basket is considered in 30-day period. Suppose if you are buying a refrigerator or if you are buying an air conditioner, then considered as non-food item as 1 year. And this is what is meant by modified mixed recall period. Now when you look at your Tendulkar committee, your modified recall period, it has used. Your Tendulkar committee has used modified recall period. Mixed recall period, Mixed recall period. Whereas your Rangarajan committee, which was constituted in 2012, it has used modified mixed recall period, making the estimation of poverty line more comprehensive. Now, when you look at the poverty estimation as per Tendulkar committee, it was around 22.7%, I said. Now, as per Rangarajan committee, with the conclusion or with the inclusion of modified mixed recall period, it was around 29.2%. Now, this variation with respect to below poverty line population or BPL is because of comprehensive nature of the basket of consideration for the estimation of poverty. The Tendulkar committee has used modified recall mixed recall period, but whereas your Rangarajan committee has used modified mixed recall period. So this is all about the estimation of poverty line. Now, what is the next aspect of poverty that we are supposed to see?
Status also.
The status. The status is nothing but your Rangarajan committees or Tendulkar committee's estimation, right? Okay. Now, next is factors or reason. Factors or reasons of poverty. Now, when you look at the factors or reasons of poverty, basically again you split them into social, political, economic, technological. Right? Now, what are the social reasons?
Social exclusion in the past.
Health, education, social stereotyping. For example, your SCs, your STs, your women, your marginal sections. Social stereotype or social discriminations. Yes. Now, next, when you talk about political, the lack or absence of political representations. Then underrepresentation of marginal sections. Now, when you talk about economic, one important factor is unemployment. Skill mismatch. What is the type of unemployment that is resultant of skill mismatch?
Structural unemployment.
Very good. What is frictional unemployment?
You don't willing to work or something like that. No, yeah, changing of jobs, something.
Every UPSC aspirant is in frictional unemployment. Okay. You don't will to work is what is called as voluntary unemployment. Right? Skill mismatch. Then absence of opportunities, absence of economic opportunities. Technological, can I say digital divide? Yes, because we see the data as the new oil. Now, for example, if you look at your health parameters or education parameters, we find that health happens to be one of the main drivers for the greater incidence of poverty. Now, one reason is something called as out-of-pocket expenditure. Now, when you look at the out-of-pocket expenditure in India, it is around 68%. Now, because of this extremely high out-of-pocket expenditure in India, there is greater incidence of poverty. Now, when you talk about this digital divide, it is only that 28% of the people who are using your internet. That is also a case of, or that is also a reason or factor for your poverty.
So what is the 68%?
Out of pocket expenditure.
No, I mean 68%. What does it mean?
Suppose if there is an health expenditure of 100, 68 rupees are spent from one's own pocket. Is this clear? Now suppose if you talk about your social discrimination, one of the hindering factor with respect to social discrimination or social discrimination resulting in the phenomenon of poverty is your gender bias. Your gender bias. Now when we look at gender bias, there is one report which states that if there is a gender inclusion or if there is absence of gender stereotyping with respect to employment levels, or if both men and women work together, there is an impact of 27% increase in the GDP. Yes? That is the reason why Swami Vivekananda says, no bird can fly high with a single wing. Now for a country to prosper, you need equal participation and equal role of women and men. Right? So this is all about the reasons, causes. Now say if there is a statement as part of your question, poverty is a multi-dimensional issue, comment. This is what it is. This is what it is. This is the reason why we call poverty as a multi-dimensional issue. Because it has a political connotation, it has a social connotation, it has an economic connotation, it has technological connotation. Now I'll give you a flow chart. Now you will understand that whatever we have seen, the causes of poverty are nothing but consequences of poverty. Whatever were the causes of poverty are consequences of poverty. It's a vicious cycle of poverty. Just see this. Poverty. What we have said lacking of social needs is poverty. Now because of lack of social needs in the form of education or health, yes, it results in unemployment, or the economic potential or the economic productivity of the individual is not being realized because of absence of necessary skill set, because of absence of necessary access to education, because of absence of necessary access to health. So the productivity of the individual is automatically affected. When the productivity of the individual is affected, what happens to employment levels? Or it will turn out to be an unemployed individual or unemployment condition. Now once there is unemployment, it is very certain that there is lack of income security. Unemployment, there is lack of income security. Don't you think when there is lack of income security, it is in turn going to lead lack of social needs? Now, when an individual is not having an income, on what basis do you think he is going to access to education? On what basis do you think he is going to access to health? Don't you think that is going to impact further the accessibility of an individual to the basic needs? Don't you think it is going to result in lacking of the basic capabilities or inherent realization of inherent needs? Now, because of lack of income security in the individual, don't you think he is subjected to an exploitative condition? Yes. Exploitation in the form of bonded labor. Exploitation in the form of slavery. Exploitation in the form of land alienation. And when it comes to women, exploitation in the form of prostitution. So there is different manifestations of exploitation which is hindering the social potential or the social capabilities of the individual. Now, when you have the social capabilities of the individual being exploited or not able to being realized, I said exploitation may be in the form of debt trap or alienation, all this, or bonded labor or land alienation. Now, all the different forms of exploitation, be it form of your debt trap, be it form of your slavery, be it form of your land alienation, be it form of your bonded labor, don't you think they are going to lead to further poverty? Yes. Yes or no? Now, can't we say the causes of poverty are the consequences of poverty? We have seen lack of social needs is a condition for poverty to flourish. And because of that poor conditions or because of lack of access to social needs, the individual's economic potential is taking a hit. When the individual's economic potential is taking a hit, it is very certain he is subjected to the economic exploitation or social exploitation. Now, when he is subjected to social exploitation, don't you think it will lead to the individual to surrender or to be subjugated under a particular condition? He is made to kneel down for the circumstances for which he is being faced because of the lack of access to social needs. Now, which will further lead to poverty. So, this is the vicious cycle. This is the vicious cycle of poverty. You remember this, whole of your poverty is summarized. Right? Now tell me, what are the impacts of poverty? What are the impacts of poverty?
Formation of slums.
Formation of slums. Okay.
Unable to reach the demographic dividend.
Impacts of poverty. Again, split. I told you structure is extremely important. Social, economic, political, ethical, and technological. Now tell me, what are social impacts? Lack of social capital
Threat to social harmony.
or threat to social stability or peace. There's lack of social capital. Now when it comes to economic, the consequence is exploitation. Exploitation. The economic consequence of poverty is exploitation or lack of access to basic needs. Now when it comes to political, he lack representation. Yes,
States are becoming ineffective.
that's what I told. Lack representation. Then he will not have a complete awareness about the fundamental rights. Now that is the reason why Swami Vivekananda, when he is talking about practical Vedanta, preach or teach Vedas to an empty stomach.
Whoever understands.
Because first give him food, then teach him something. Now the impacts of poverty is also something like this. When you're not having food to eat, on what basis or why will an individual dare to think of something called as fundamental rights? Now where the elite class himself are not aware about what you basically mean by fundamental rights. Now a person who is lacking an access to a square meal, do you think he'll have the time to think for fundamental rights? No. So the political consequence of poverty is absence of or the lack of realization of fundamental rights. Then ethical aspect, moral or the self-respect. Now economic also you include this inequalities. Economic inequality. Now when you talk about technology, again it is digital divide or technological alienation. You can call it as something called as technological alienation. Is this clear? These are the impacts of poverty. Now we call poverty as a multidimensional issue not only because it creeps into the social, economic, political, technological, ethical sphere, but you find the causes and the impacts are in a vicious cycle. Because of this vicious cycle between the causes of poverty and the impacts of poverty, that is the reason why we call poverty as a multidimensional issue. Your causes are multidimensional in nature, your impacts are multidimensional in nature. Or the causes and the consequences of poverty are multidimensional in nature. That is why your poverty is considered as a multidimensional phenomenon. Now if you have to estimate the levels of poverty or if you have to get a picture about the levels of poverty, you basically need a multi-dimensional aspect. That is the reason why they wanted to shift from Human Development Index to something called as Multi-Dimensional Poverty Index. This year's GS2 question means the rationale behind multi-dimensional poverty or the shifting of Human Development Index to Multi-Dimensional Poverty Index. Now if you understand this broader picture of poverty, that the vicious cycle of causes and the vicious cycle of impacts are multidimensional in nature, you could have answered this answer very easily and you could have written a beautiful answer to this. Because that question was basically asking for you to interpret poverty as a multidimensional issue. If you know the 10 components of multidimensional poverty index, and if you know that we have brought out or we have uplifted 271 million people out of poverty in 1 decade, more than sufficient to answer this question. Now India, as part of your multidimensional poverty index, it has worked out to pull out 271 million people out of poverty in 1 decade, and which is considered to be extremely high performing nation. And the other success model with respect to multidimensional poverty index is your Nigeria. Is this clear? So please go back and refer.
So these many people have been pulled out of absolute poverty, right?
Poverty.
Definition set by Indian standards or the
Multidimensional poverty index. Those people only. Right? So this is all about the poverty. Now tell me, what are the measures for your poverty?
Broadening the definition of
What are the measures for your poverty?
social political.
Generating employment.
Can we divide it into same categories? Social political.
We said it's a multi-dimensional aspect. So when any issue that is multi-dimensional, you basically need a multi-stakeholder approach. You basically need a multi-stakeholder approach. The multi-stakeholder approach one can be individual level. The other can be community or societal level. The other can be at national and the other can be international. This is one approach of multi-dimensional aspect. Or individual, societal, and apart from societal, governmental and private or corporate sector. Let us not go for international here because we are going to talk about poverty as an issue of India.
So most of the poor people work in unorganized sector. Right?
Yes.
So we are unable to tap the potential of the unorganized sector. Like we need to bring the unorganized sector into mainstream also. Can we also work on that? Like
That can never happen.
measures.
That can never happen.
Like I have seen a video in YouTube, like he was saying how the business operations are going on, like Dabawala on a street
Yeah.
can change.
You are basically talking about formalization of workforce.
So it will give a
But when you look at the Indian conditions for factors of production, and when you consider especially labor, your labor lobbies will not allow for formalization. Because what happens with formalization is your industries or your companies are supposed to abide by your labor codes. Now, when they are supposed to abide by your labor codes, there will be huge levels of unemployment prevailing in the country.
but they themselves are creating their own employment.
So we, in unorganized sectors, we can provide them some rights, governmental measure, as a governmental measure.
We can basically look for the welfare mechanism of this unorganized sector. But when you look at the practical solution for formalization of workforce, it is extremely difficult and it will, at least policy level, maybe on theoretical basis you can write formalization of workforce as a solution for poverty, that is fine. But when you look at the theoretical aspect, it becomes extremely difficult. Okay. Or at individual level, for community level, maybe you can use Amul as a case study. Amul Cooperative Society, that as a case study. And at governmental level, maybe you can talk about wage employment and self-employment measures. That is wage. And for private sector, you can talk about your corporate social responsibilities. Is it clear? No, any element we had missed out with respect to poverty?
Some measures in individual level.
Measures at individual level, maybe you can talk about skilling. Maybe you can talk about skilling or enhancing the human capacities or human capital. Yes? Any other aspect of poverty we have missed out? Is it clear? Now I think it is relevant for me to put forth the debate of universal basic income in the context of poverty, because that is also still a pending question. And there are a number of states who have conducted pilot studies with respect to implementation of UBIs. For example, your Madhya Pradesh, your Sikkim is basically very proactive with respect to implementation of your UBIs. So the debate that is centered around your universal basic income, let's see few positives and few negatives. that will be more than sufficient. Now, what is universal basic income?
Minimum income for all the people,
Minimum income, setting a limit, standard.
irrespective of the social.
Basically, it is an unconditional. It is an unconditional income. It is an unconditional income that is provided to the particular individual in a periodic intervals. Now that is what is your universal basic income. Your 2018 economic survey, I think 2017 economic survey, sorry, it was 18 only. 18 economic survey evaluates this step of universal basic income as a mechanism that was proposed by Mahatma Gandhi. The Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy of Swaraj, the Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy of Adarsh Gram, all this can be manifested with the proposal of universal basic income. With the proposals of universal basic income. Now, when you look at this evaluation of the step of universal basic income, when you look some countries like Nigeria, some countries like Rwanda, they have tried or they have implemented this universal basic income on pilot basis. They have implemented these on pilot basis. And they have seen a marginal increase with respect to the income levels or income securities of the people or the citizens of that particular country. Now, what positives you can get with respect to your universal basic income is, the first thing you can get is income security. You ensure income security, and in our flowchart of poverty, we have seen that because of lack of access of income security, we have seen they are being subjected to different forms of exploitation. Now, when you ensure income security through UBI, you are going to ensure the levels of human rights, the levels of fundamental rights realization in the individual or that particular section. So, it will ensure income security. First, point number one. The second positive point or point number two, income security is one. Point number two is respect to the individual can have or can imbibe a risk-taking nature. The individual can have or imbibe a risk-taking nature. Individual can have or imbibe the risk-taking nature, which will in turn enable him to diversify his occupation. Now, why do you think the farmer is restricted to agriculture? Because he has that feeling that if he goes out of agriculture, he cannot sustain. Or if he diversifies his agriculture to animal husbandry, he is not going to get the required returns. Now, in order to remove that hindrance or remove that element, this UBI will promote the risk-taking nature in an individual, which will in turn lead to occupational diversity, which will further lead to your income security. The third advantage is rationalization of subsidies. Yes, rationalization of subsidies. Now, when you talk about the rationalization of subsidies, instead of having multiple subsidies in the form of fertilizer subsidy, agriculture subsidy, different power subsidies, now instead of having number of subsidies, now rationalize all the subsidies, trim down all the subsidies and give it in the form of UBI. Right? Now, this is third advantage. Now, what is fourth advantage? Financial autonomy of women. Financial autonomy of women. Financial autonomy of women. So, these are certain advantages of UBI. Now, when you talk about the negative impacts of universal basic income, the first negative impact is the complexity in calculation. The calculation complexities. That means you don't know what value of universal basic income to fix, to what parameter to fix, or to what parameter to consider, or to what statistical formula or what statistical method that has to be used to calculate this. It is a question mark. Because still it is not a time tested concept. It is still a concept which is very nascent in nature. Yes. The second, there is scope for diversions. There is scope for diversions. That means instead of using that whatever money you are getting as part of universal basic income for as an input subsidy or as an input cost, you are diverting it for alcoholism or certain purchasing of certain sin goods. That is an issue. Now the third issue is there is a scope or fear for promotion of voluntary unemployment. Voluntary unemployment or promotion of lethargy. Why are so much connected with voluntary unemployment? Huh? Voluntary unemployment or lethargy. Right? Lethargy. Okay, so this is basic evaluation. Now if you have to write a conclusive remarks on UBI in your answer, you can safely say, lack of data is one negative or one challenge for UBI. But if you want to conclude your answer on UBI, you can safely say that it demands greater levels of understandings, right? Political will and necessary pilot studies. Or it demands an multi-stakeholder consensus. Or it demands a convergence, coordination and cooperation of different stakeholders of the society.
Convergence of multiple stakeholders.
Is this clear?
So can you just repeat the way forward?
It demands.
One is multi-stakeholder consensus. The second one is convergence, coordination and cooperation of multi-stakeholders. Or it demands a detailed study. Or the efficiency of UBI demands on the degree of data-driven governance. Demands or it depends on the degree of data-driven governance. Is this clear? Right? Did you all understand the broader perspectives of poverty? Yes? So this is all about poverty.
So will this raise inflation actually? If at all if this is implemented.
Which one? UBI, yeah, it will have an inflationary impact. That is one negative you can write. Inflationary impact.
So then how can the scope of voluntary unemployment can happen?
Why?
If there is inflation, then the money which we are getting also is not sufficient to buy the goods.
See,
So
please don't be confused with respect to inflation and relation in terms of your Phillips curve. Your Phillips curve basically gives you an inverse relation between your inflation and unemployment rates. Now the contradictory to the theory of Phillips is your stagflation. So when you look at your inflation, now it is not necessary that the unemployment levels are going to rise, or that is not an persistent condition. Now because, for example, take a classic study. If you look at your aggregate demand curve, your aggregate supply, aggregate demand curve of your economy, it talks you what? This is your market equilibrium position. And when your aggregate demand AD equals to C plus G plus I plus X, yes, I plus X, X is your net imports or exports, right? That's why I'm not using that negative sign there. Now if any of these factors, say with UPI, your consumption is going to increase, individual consumption. Now when your individual consumption is going up, it is very certain that automatically your aggregate demand is going up. When your aggregate demand is going up, your curve is going to shift upwards. Now when your curve is shifting upwards, the issue with respect to the tackling of inflation or tackling of growth on the side of aggregate demand is, it creates an inflation growth conflict. Now what do you basically mean by inflation growth conflict is when you are shifting or when there is an increase in aggregate demand, either by increased consumption expenditure or either by a expansionary fiscal policy or either by increased investment by your corporates, what happens is your aggregate demand is going to increase, very certainly. When your aggregate demand increases, your growth rate is also increasing, your inflation is also increasing. Now this is a contradictory situation where there is a conflict between your inflation as well as growth. We need reduction in inflation and increase in growth. Now in order to get rid of this inflation growth conflict, that is the reason why they have gone for Make in India. Now why do you think they have gone for Make in India instead of giving money and spend? Why? Now when you look at Make in India, it is going to look, or it is going to pull the growth curve from the side of your aggregate supply, not from the side of your aggregate demand. Now when you look at the pulling or the impact of Make in India on the aggregate supply, it basically normalizes the cost of factors of production. It basically normalizes the supply side constraints. Now when it is going to normalize your supply side constraints, or it is going to pull, or it is going to normalize your cost of factors of production, what do you think is going to happen? Your aggregate supply curve is going to shift. Now when your aggregate supply curve is shifting upwards, what is happening to growth? It is also increasing. But what is happening to your price levels? Decreasing. This is the importance of supply side constraints. Now when we take India, we are mostly driven by your aggregate demand. We are mostly driven by aggregate demand, and the fundamental reason behind why India being driven by an aggregate demand is we have supply side constraints. And the supply side constraints is mostly in the absence of inputs. Now when you look at your import basket, when you look at, or when you compare the import basket of India with the rest of the world, you would find that the rest of the world has a non-essential import basket. But when you look at Indian import basket, it is an essential import basket. That means whatever we are importing, they are necessary, they are must for your production levels to increase. Now suppose if we don't want to import, then we are going to be faced with an production fatigue. We are going to be faced with an supply side constraint. Now what are your import basket? It is nothing but your PEG, your petrol, electronics and gold. Now your petrol, your oil is an essential, your electronics is an essential, your gold to an extent. Because all of your physical savings or the financial savings of India is in the form of gold. That is the reason, or that is the rationale for your sovereign gold bonds or your gold ETFs. Yes. So we operate mostly because on, or mostly on aggregate demand, because we have an inherent supply side constraints. Now, in order to escape this inherent supply side constraints in the form of essential import basket, what we come up today is we call something called as gas-based economy. The rationale behind India shifting or India transcending its production side or its market towards gas based economy is to get or is to run away from this burden of essential import basket. Why this discussion came up?
Out of that.
Volatile.
Inflation. Right? That is all about UBI. Any doubts you want to ask? Anything you want to get clarified till now, whatever we have discussed? Anything that has to be repeated, tell me, because I think we have covered most of your GS1 Indian society. Tomorrow we'll deal with vulnerable sections. We'll start with women because women is little bit big topic. Then from women, we'll deal with caste. And as part of caste only, we'll deal your scheduled caste. Then we'll shift to tribes. Okay. Then in the afternoon sleepy section, maybe we'll deal with marginal sections, children, all this. Right? So with that, I think major part of your society and social issues will be done. And day after, I think more than half day will be left for us to deal with governance issues if you want. I can deal, no issues. Is that fine? Any doubt?
Just repeating measures for
For poverty?
eliminating poverty again.
One is at individual level, at cooperative or societal level. The third is governmental or private sector.
Okay.
Right? Shall we disperse today? Yes?
If you feel like
Now, if you want me to continue also, I can continue, but I don't think I can complete women at a stretch.
then let's
That is the reason, because if I start, at least I'll take 1.5 hour more for women to be completed. So it will become 8 o'clock for you people, it will become little
When we
tough.
start?
Tomorrow 8, morning 8 o'clock. Morning 8 o'clock, so that by 9:30 we can complete women and have a 10-minute break and come back for caste systems. Because caste system and understanding caste systems and dynamics is extremely important. Because they are going little unconventional when it comes to your questions on caste system. Right? That's it, class. Thank you. We'll meet tomorrow exactly at 8 o'clock.
First, I can say